Well, he was a villain anyway. He was a villain, did you say? A villain? Will you cuss him, Bill? Aye, cuss your fill, boy, cuss your fill. A villain, eh? But before I'm done, you'll know something more about him, my son. Now, men, what was I to do? Can you tell? Just leave it alone? Aye, maybe as well. But I never would strike my flag to a lie, before I knew good reason why. No, no, my lads, it's not in my blood. I never did and I never would. Well, I thought and I thought, till at last a plan come into me head, and that's the man, I says. The parson. I'll go to him, and I'll know the worst of it, sink or swim. So I cleaned myself, and I had a draw of the pipe, and I went, but middlin' slow, for my head was working uncommon hard all the way, and I didn't regard for nothing at all the boats coming round the stack, a beating up for the ground, and I ran to Pike's schooner caught in the tide, and a nice little hole, sail-free breeze outside. Not much matter to me, you spec. No, but you'd allers be noticing the leck. Now the grandest old parson, I'll be bail, that ever was old Pazon Gale. Of all the kind and good and the true, and the easy and free, and how d'ye do, and how's your mother, Tom, and the fishing, spaking that nice, and always wishing good luck to the boats, and how's the take, and blessing us there for Jesus' sake. And many a time he'd come out and try a line, and the keen he was, and the spry, and he'd sit in the stern, and he'd tuck his tails, and well he knew how to handle the sails. And sometimes, if we were smooking, he'd ask for a pipe, and then we'd be turning our backs, letting on never to see him, and looking this way and that, and him a smooking twists as strong as black as tar, and terrible solemn and regular. Bless me, the spirit was in him too, holding on till all was blue, and only a little man, but staunch, with a big heart aback of his paunch. Just a little round man, but you should have seen him agate of a good-sized conger or skate, his arms as stiff and his eyes afire, and every muscle on him like wire. But I've asked this talk. What did you say? Tell us more about the parson, eh? Well, he was a parson, yes. But there's odds of parsons, that's the way it is. For there's parsons now that's mortal proud, and some middle and humble, that's allowed. And there's parsons particular about their clothes, and rings on their fingers and bells on their toes. And there's parsons that doesn't know your names. Shut the gate, my man, and all them games. And there's parsons too free, I've heard one cuss as hard and hearty as one of us. But Pazon Gale, now I'll give you his size. He was a simple parson, and loving and wise. That's what he was, and quite uncommon, and never said much to man nor woman, only the little he said was meat for the hungry heart, and soft and sweet the way he said it. And often talking to hisself and looking down and walking, quiet he was, but you couldn't doubt the parson was knowing what he was about. Aye, many a time I've seen his face all slushed with tears, and him telling of grace and mercy and that, and his voice so low, but trembling. We liked him though. And he wasn't living above the bay where I was living, but a bit away, over the necks and betwixt the two. The land ran out to a point, and the screw of the tide set in on the rocks, and there he'd be standing in the morning, and listening to hear the dip of our oars coming out, and the jealous we were of the Derby Haven fellas, and the way we'd pull to try which would be fuss, and parson we'd say, "Are you coming with us?" And the Derby Haven chaps would call, and the way he'd smile and say nothing at all. Well, that's the parson, you'll understand. Aye, the very man, the very man. If I once get a gate of him, but some night again, if I'll be on the trim, I'll maybe be telling you more, if so be you be caring to listen and all agree. Well, the parson was walking on the gravel. My conscience, the slow that man did travel. Backwards and forwards, and stopping and thinking, and talking away to hisself like winking, and a picking a flower or a kicking a stone. There he was anyway, all alone. And I felt like a regular blundering Blockit. And I stowed the quid in my waistcoat pocket, and I said, "Here goes, I don't give a farden." And I'd opened the gate and into the garden, and "Parson," I says, "I've come to you." "Is it true, Tom Baines?" he says. "Is it true?" And he looked. "No, it isn't," I said, quite pale. "So you needn't look that way, Pazon Gale. It isn't true." So the old man smiled, and he says, "Well, don't be angry, child." "Child," he called me. "D'ye see, child?" And he takes my hand and says he, "I suppose you've got a yarn to spin. Come in, Tom Baines, come in, come in." So in we went, and him smiling like fun into the parlour, but the mistress run quite shamed like, whisking through the door and dropping her things upon the floor, and the servant keeked over the landing top, a dirty Trouss with a head like a mop, and she gurned like a cat, but I didn't care, though they're middling spiteful, them creathers are. So I told the parson all that I had, and he says, God bless ye, my lad. It's himself that knew my very soul, and me so young and him so old. And all the good talk, and never fear, and leave it to him and he'd bring me clear, and Anthony wanted speaking to, and on with the hat and away he'd go. And young Mr. Taylor, a son of old Dan, was a very intelligent young man. "Easy, parson," says I, and he went, and all the road home, "Intelligent," I said. "What's that? Some pretty name for a dingit. These parsons is just like crime. They're talking that smooth. It's well to be civil. A son of old Dan's, and Dan was a divil.